And this is The Art of Rock, where we talk about the process and experience of making music. It's brought to you by the patrons of Angelspit. Our intrepid guide, Carl Zug von Rock of that same band, can't be on the show this week, so in the meantime, I'm helping keeping it going. My name is Raziel. I'm from the band You Shriek. The land I'm on has been historically cared for by the Massachusetts tribe, so I'm taking a moment to honor the first people who lived, worked, and loved the Boston area long before colonization. We have a fantastic group of people to talk about our ideas and experiences this week in the modern pursuit of creativity and the fun and health and challenges around that. And we talked a little bit in the pre-show just a while ago about a few things. One of the first things, Mark, you brought up the idea of new things that we've done in the pursuit of releasing music. So when uploading to the distribution for the DSPs, and also I think we've also got some experiences with non-streaming provider releases also among us that maybe somebody can jump in and talk about. Mark, good to see you. What was your angle on that?
I guess my angle is that I'm assuming that I get the artwork back from the artist I'm working with in this year. I'm planning to actually release my EP on streaming services. It's already on Bandcamp. But yeah, so since I ended up having to wait because I don't have the art ready, I wanted, before I actually release it, I wanted to check, okay, is there anything new I should know about before I pull the trigger in like a month or two?
I'm going to jump in with a couple of details that I've been finding lately, and I don't know if it's changed, but I'm finding that the structure of the backend data is more structured right now. In that, like co-songwriters and remixer roles and things like that, there's usually a pull down to indicate what the role is rather than just doing the stuff freeform, and also subtitles in the this is a slightly different version of the song are more universally supported. Maybe that's not such a new thing, and maybe it's just the distributor that I've been using. But being able to sort of think that stuff through and make sure you've got the actual writer's name, and then whatever your if there are any collaborators, but having your label and personal name and writer name be uniform for other releases. There's probably stuff that labels and artists handle pretty routinely, but that I've been pretty bad at. Does anybody else have different experiences with their distributor or going to things that aren't streaming lately? Ivan, can I ask you specifically how you worked it out with your SoundCloud releases, if you don't mind chiming in on that?
Oh yeah, no, the like I just something gets released weekly is probably like the best way to describe it. So I'm putting a lot of demos up there, and then like as those turn into songs, the demos just get replaced with the new content to keep it moving forward. And I've discovered, over the last 2 weeks that if you take a break from that, and like nothing new's going up, like your plays will just drop through the floor. Like, like I was down around 0 at the beginning of the week, and then I released another demo, and suddenly I'm, back to where I was.
Okay, so the release side of it is one of frequency, and you're finding success with that. Is there, in the actual sending it to them front, has there been anything different in how you're approaching that as far as getting the tracks uploaded and labeled and have the metadata
Yeah,
on
well,
them?
I mean, like I'm using the same set of tags for everything. And like I don't know if that's the right idea or the wrong idea, or if I could tag it better. I haven't figured that out yet. I have a membership over on Night Cafe, and so I'm not an artist. I don't do artist stuff. Also, this doesn't pay money, so I don't have money to throw at this. But I do need artwork because, but I would never ask an artist for art because I can't pay them. Like, like game over. So I'm using Night Cafe to generate, a bunch of stills. And so like every thing I upload gets its own still in the background. and I think that's helped. That's helped.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't look. They look totally AI, but they're not badly AI. Like
People
there's
can
appropriate
recognize
numbers
that.
of fingers. They have no extra eyes or ears.
Are you getting a uniform style with that?
Yes, and I'm getting actually a very uniform style. They're all recognizably, part of my brand.
Good. Yeah, yeah.
There was another like I don't know if anybody here follows cigarettes after sex.
No,
About
but
as
I
not
mean,
industrial as it gets. They're very good though. And pre-pandemic, like they were playing like Talia Hall size venues in Chicago. So 1,000-ish people. Probably not even that. Great venue to see them. Perfect. Everything was great. I loved it. Now, a couple of years later, they're playing salt shed size venues.
you're going to have to put that
So,
into something like capacity or
yes. No, so
square
like
footage.
10,000
Okay.
10,000 people, and they're selling
Appreciate
these
it.
out. I think it actually was the latest Chicago show that's playing it. That's going to be at the United Center.
Cool.
So like exponentially more capacity. And to which I can only say yay for them because it means they're doing well.
Right on.
But they have a new album coming out in July, and they are, I think, doing a masterful job of hyping it up and getting it out there. They've been releasing, about once every 2 months a song off that album since like November.
Cool. So
Yeah.
the frequency of the releases and how they're doing it is feeding directly into this sort of public ascension that you're seeing.
Getting people ready for the actual album to drop, which also like they're dropping an actual album, which
really that frequently.
Well, no, not
they will be dropping.
But they will be dropping an actual album, which in this day and age is getting to be a weird thing.
And so as a case study, you're finding that to be they are doing a predictable kind of thing with their distribution and getting it to the normal streaming DSPs and stuff. There's no like special place that this is going or anything. It's just a general release.
Like mostly I'm seeing that there's new stuff out because it's showing up on YouTube, and since I follow them, it just gets shown to me. And okay, ditto with Facebook, and then like immediately they're showing up on SoundCloud, or not SoundCloud, showing up everywhere. And like I think they're doing like the way they're handling this is turning into kind of a master class on how to prep for an album release, especially like in this weird day and age.
Yeah.
Like they're signed to a label, I can't remember which one. But like, in this day and age, that almost doesn't matter because the label's going to expect the band to do all of the heavy lifting anyways.
Yeah, like being appealing and talented and getting your face out there and posting your socials.
And doing all the socials and getting somebody to make a music video, and
that is the job of the artist to some extent, right? Yeah. Can I ask, Mark, what distributors have you tried and have you found shortcomings that you've encountered when you're putting this stuff up, or is it more open-ended?
My thing's more open-ended because, like I said, I haven't released anything on streaming yet, but I've heard, I've seen advertisements for DistroKid because I do watch Sanjay C videos, and then I think I've seen a few others, but anyway, and then there's also Root Note, which I came across, and I was like, free sounds great, and I don't mind if I'm missing some income because I don't really expect to make much anyway.
Yeah, I'll chime in specifically about Root Note, and their deal is pretty good. I used the comparison matrix on aristake.com. We've mentioned this before, but there is a fantastic, very comprehensive, exhaustive grid of comparison for distributors that upload to the streaming retailers. And Root Note came out as you can upload it for free, keep it up for free forever, and they'll take a percentage, which a lot of places kind of do. But they also allow for you to switch to the annual fee-based thing. So if you're costs start exceeding, you're paying them more than $20 a year or whatever, you can just switch to the annual and cap it at the annual fee instead of always paying them the percentage, even when you are selling 1 million streams a day. So the caution is Root Note is extremely slow compared with others, and they're responsive in the support, but they are not. They don't have an outsourced staff to handle your complaints, questions, and fixing stuff, and they seem overburdened. So if you're super patient, stick with Root Note. If you want stuff to happen fast and you don't quite care about the ethics or other features about a company that may or may not meet what you need from them, go with anybody because they all get it up faster and it's pretty reliable. So if I can, cheerlead a little bit for their structure, Root Note, but also acknowledge that it's not the most modern nor certainly fastest and quickest to get to support system out there, platform out there, but I've got my stuff on them, so good vote. The one thing that sort of comes to mind with this, and I don't know, certainly Mark, if this applies to you, but I wanted to do my last release as an EP, not having it appear in my albums collection, and that's like kind of not a thing you have direct control over, except by the duration and number of tracks. So I was keeping the EPs, split it so I could do a continuous mix on each. And most of the players kind of support continuous mixes pretty well. They have since Pink Floyd, it's not a new thing. But for Bandcamp, which is a priority for me as far as attention and, cool people being on there, their player apparently doesn't handle it as well. So I decided to do 2 separate mixes. 2 separate releases, 3 catalog numbers, EP1, EP2, and then EP for Bandcamp, which is actually album length, but they don't have any of that stuff since Bandcamp does not report royalties because they don't do streaming. Their streaming stuff isn't reported, so you don't have to fill in nearly as much information. You just upload the tracks. But since they're not paying royalties, you have to decide whether you want the song ISRCs from your other releases actually to line up with those. In my case, maybe this is interesting, I did not, because no crossfades on the Bandcamp version. This is the one for DJs. They're full-length tracks that start and stop. There's no mega mix kind of experience for it. So what I did, long story, continuing to be long, I made a dummy release on Root Note to get all the ISRCs and the UPC code for the thing and put my release number and thing. And I'm probably just not going to put it in retail, but I end up with the proper titles and ISRC codes so that the things exist and I can refer to them. And I'll have the Bandcamp version and the streaming versions, and never the twain shall meet unless conveniently I just want to go to Root Note and hit the button and say, please go to retail. So I don't know. That's something that came to mind, Mark, when you mentioned the idea. Even probably doesn't apply to a lot of people, but I know I've seen a few bands do different versions with different mix strategies. And the thing that I discovered was that ISRC codes generally should be generated if your fade out changes the length of the song more than 10 seconds, or if there's a different mix or any of that stuff. So it sort of makes sense to give them unique codes. And that is a very long way of saying, yeah, there's some new stuff that I've been thinking about. There it is. Mark, any other thoughts on that and where you're going with it?
No, not really. Like I said, just I had some time between when I was going to release and now when it's going to be. So I thought I'd just check in, see if anyone had any ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I got ideas about the things I'm doing. Apparently, they may or not apply to anybody else's situation. But thank you for bringing that up. Does anybody else have any releases in the queue that they're doing? Raise a hand, give me a wave. Brett, are you putting stuff out? You're kind of like giving a side, this kind of thing, which means maybe. Talk about it if you are.
I've got stuff that I need to release. I just haven't done it yet. I've got basically I need to go back through and make myself comfortable with them, make my peace with them before I do so, I guess.
Are you far from doing that, or how is that process? Because we could.
No, I've been sitting on about 3 tracks, 3 or 4. Part of what it is part of the reason I've been sitting on them is I've been trying to. I've actually considered them for an entire collection, and I haven't decided yet whether or not I want to stream them out or sit there and say, okay, this is the last time I'm going to put out an album like this, you know, and then go to straight up streaming.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, that model, the streaming model, I mean, kind of works better for me. But I do very much also like, as a listener, having that collection put together.
I and I think that's an artistic decision more than anything, but also sensitive to the listeners. Do you care like really deeply though, one way or the other, or are you just thinking of the listeners? Like artistically, do you have a preference on this one, on this collection?
I used to care more than I do now.
Yeah.
Part of that is literally me just kind of hanging on to, those ghosts, I guess. It's one of those that it's really more familiarity, I guess, than anything else. It's like when I'm listening to music, for example, I'll still listen to an entire album. I know that's not the way a lot of people listen to music these days. It's like, no, give me my playlist. And that's cool too. When, I have my moods for that. But generally, my attention towards a band or a work or something like that is at least, an album's worth of songs. And then I'm kind of like, okay, well, that was fun. That put me in that mood. Let me go to another mood, kind of. So that's the little bit of the dilemma for me in that regard.
Well, I think I'm with you. Like, I mean, I definitely catch a new band because I heard their song, in a playlist. Like, I think that there's a lot of levels to this. But I become a fan of the band by the album, certainly, which is, as you're saying. So I think that there, as a listener, it's still important for collections to exist in the way that the artist thinks about it. But you sort of started from the angle of like what matters, like technically for the release strategies and stuff. And I'm not sure it does right now, really. Like there's so many creative ways of putting your stuff out and reaching people that, like I'm not 100% sure about this, but my theory is that there is more of a habit in the album cycle, promotion cycle, that's built into the way that the labels did things than anything. The real gravity is in that, and the artistic reasons too. Like those are saying,
Well, and the likely realistic medium of middle point of those two positions is going to be something where, you end up building and doing basically what Ivan's doing, where you're actually essentially building an album on the fly in real time with the audience there or not. And that's part of why, I found that very interesting. And I mean, it's definitely influencing me in that regard as far as how I want to take the next steps. Part of the other thing is too, one of the other hang-ups is actually video creation. And that's where TV comes into play. So part of that is, I'm waiting on my animator to finish up, and I need to work with her again, figure out where we're at on that so that I can get that released. And part of my mindset there was go ahead and stage it out based on kind of like that, or based on here's the video, here's a couple more tracks to go with it, and so there's part of it's just real life, the working with other people who do what they do well.
I think that you can make that decision like stacking up for the backlog so that you'll have a thing to all go boom at once and making a splash strategy, which I don't think that we're collectively, I know I'm not doing the kind of numbers where that really matters. If my 7 people who are paying attention to this one post are really psyched for the fact that I'm saying it's going to be an album, then that's great. But it doesn't really, I haven't found in the past year of pushing one album and releasing singles any difference in response about if I'm posting about a song or the record or making a video. Like people are there for your personality and or style or message or camaraderie or whatever it is, more than because of the event right now at this level. I think that probably I'll refer back to Taylor Swift as the model of this, can pull some kind of huge event with a budget and marketing and stuff and effectively make 10x on the cost of that. But I'm not sure that that's really the point of what we're doing here necessarily, nor, is it necessary to follow a model if you're finding, and I know Ivan is talking about it very specifically, putting stuff out there and doing things with your work continually and finding an audience that way, rather than making a hard decision about like, okay, this is the release date. Which of course we started this conversation about the aggregators sending to DSPs, and they very much need a release date and a pre-release date and stuff like that. So it's still built in. But Ivan, go ahead, talk to me about that.
Yeah, and like it results in engagement over the last week. Like I've over on SoundCloud, like started getting messages from people that are listening to my music. Like suddenly I've got fans. I don't know how that happened, but like being out there is probably the first step.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of why we're bothering to do this, for sure. I don't think we'd be here talking about it with each other, even if it was just a private endeavor. So to some extent,
Exactly.
being in the habit of putting it out there, and all of these things are like, I don't know, I do a little nervous laughter thing every time I talk about the publicity side of it and being yourself. But I mean, to say it seriously, you are putting your music out there for people to listen to and interact with and enjoy, and that is the process. It's beautiful on its own. So yeah, keep doing
Exactly.
that. While we were talking about the releases and artwork, I almost wanted to jump to like the branding consistency and logo design and stuff. Like, I don't know if there's a lot to milk out of this topic since we're the musician side of it, but we also have the responsibility of the branding, visuals, videos, AI generated emoji versions of ourselves and stuff. And Alex, you mentioned specifically logo design, and does what we're talking about dovetail in with that? And if not, steer us away either way.
Yeah, maybe. I've been thinking about creating a logo for my project, and in my head I have like this custom font, and I looked into it, and to commission a custom font you need to have like a couple of €1,000 or dollars, and there is software out there which can make your own fonts, and it's also quite affordable. But then again, I need to become good at making fonts and learn that craft, and I don't know if that's that's reasonable.
I think there's a big gulf between that. You say, like, this happens to be a pet project of mine from long ago when I discovered that you could create true type fonts, with an application, and you could start doing them in any vector program. And then there were also type design things. But I'm not positive that you need to worry about that exact gulf, since becoming a capable type designer or a scribe is probably, there's hobby level, there's musician level, and then there's actually becoming somebody who can strike beautiful digital fonts and worry about how each individual kerning pair works off the others and do something that looks good on the page. I'm just like carrying on about it because as a hobby, I was pretty into type, and there was actually a guy with a Linotype, hot type machine in my building, so I got to see it in action and stuff. So I sort of was fascinated by it. But I know that we draw the line at there are so many great typefaces by great foundries already created that you got to make that decision. Like, am I going to find something that's pretty close? Because you can search by description or find a specimen and have it tell you which typeface it is. But like, I don't know, there's so many foundries with so many styles, whether it be cyberpunk calligraphy or really traditional stuff that just kind of riffs on the classics but makes it modern, or something like House Industries where there's just a lot of interlocking fun shapes, and things that are prone to be logos. But Alex, what is that line for you, that are you really interested in developing the skills to create type for your band, for your music project? Because do it if it's a whole project, or do you need a logo to actually get finished for something?
I would love to have a logo simply because it's something that can help me like remember what I'm working on and pull me back into that mind space. And I have like a perfect vision, but I realize I can't fulfill it. And maybe if some of you have an idea how to find maybe an identity or maybe a good font, what your process is, or do you just pick one out of the list? And maybe to Ivan's problem with like finding covers, what I thought about doing is just go through stock footage or take my own pictures and just use an image manipulation software and use several filters to make something new out of it.
Yeah, to improvise and get somewhere. I'm dying to jump back in, but I'm certainly going to go to Brett. Tell me what you're thinking about that first. And there we
go.
All
yes. Right. My approach to it started kind of accidentally. So my approach to my stuff was to create a symbol, or more use an old symbol that I had in my inventory. The Demon Hates crosses, if you will, didn't actually started as an afterthought on a hand-drawn artwork I did, and it was a stupid homework assignment, and it was draw anything you want but turn something in. And I had taken all this time to draw this crazy pedestal that looked very alien and had like talons, and it was like 3-sided and crazy stuff. And then on the top of it, I thought it kind of looked naked, so I literally scrawled just that as graffiti on top, and then I got an F for it. I got an F for the homework.
Whoa.
Well, I asked the teacher why, and she's like, "You're not allowed to draw any religious symbols." I'm like, "But it's not. I made it up last night." She told me.
Did she like make that a prerequisite of the project, first of all, and second of all, like, yeah, you made this.
Right. So she took it to the principal at the time, or she said she did, but she came back and gave me a D. I'm like, F you. So I signed that. I used that symbol as a signature for everything I've done since. And at that time, I was like, well, if you think it's a religious symbol, and I just made it up last night, it sure as hell will be. And I even tattooed it on my ankle with freaking India ink and a needle. And so Demon Hate symbol literally means Brett.
Beautiful.
And
that's how you win.
That's it.
God
and everything about it at that point is just kind of mockery of religion, if you will, or mockery of religious think.
Okay, so Alex, that's your solution. Just mock religion and poke and scratch tat, and you're like there. That's the whole answer. Brett, thank you for that. I'm glad like your answer takes us into definitely a different place than searching on font sites for logos. Mark, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, mine is closest to search on font sites, because I went on a adventure looking for fonts a couple of months ago now, and yeah, it was. I think what helped the most, like maybe there's a better way to search for them, but what helped me the most was kind of narrowing down the general style. So I learned about, what was it, sans serif, serif fonts, geometric fonts. I kind of just found like, okay, I guess first look at a bunch of things, narrow down what you want, like the general vibe of what you want, and you can go from there. Because like I was like, I don't want anything too crazy. I want something that looks almost professional, like I guess professional slash boring, but it's got a little flair to it. So it's perfectly like I think futuristic is what it came out to be. Basically, you want futuristic geometric fonts.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of landed on, and then kind of just went out. Go ahead.
Did you sketch anything out first to get it solid, or were you just going with like mind's eye, go look?
It was kind of mind's eye because I knew that I wanted something that is evocative of an authoritarian, like a document you'd get from an authoritarian country. So like it looks professional, but it also has a little bit of, for lack of a better term, spice to it.
Yeah.
So that was what I had in my head.
Okay. So collecting some solid ideas and then going in and looking to see if something matches up with those ideas and then getting maybe some feedback response from what you thought. And then have you yet, forgive me if you already said so, landed on a typeface that solves this and works as...
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had to, I found this font because my artist who's doing the album cover said that she wanted that I need to pick out a font and give to her, and then she'd put that into the album art. So that's what kind of prompted the adventure.
Cool. I mean, I as somebody who's gone exclusively with Helvetica and Futura, my entire design hobby career, I think it's great to actually find stuff, and I know a lot of much more adventurous designers and people with imagination go places. Although I will say I did do a very nicely distressed version of Helvetica with like chunks of the H's falling off and the letters in my band name with some sorts of ruin and stuff, and I made that into a logo type out of a typeface on my own.
Okay.
Going way back, but in that I also included the band logo inside that same typeface, so you could just hit it as a key. Ivan, talk to me about yours.
I have spent a bajillion hours on font sites looking at a bajillion fonts. I'm still nowhere near ready to say, yeah, this is the one. But like, I know that it's actually super important because, makes you more identifiable. If you're, consistency makes you more identifiable. And, hats off to Carl. He knows the like Pantone number for the red that is Angelspit red. And like, I know I need to get there. I do need to know the Pantone number for U100 orange.
I think that branding, like etiquette in general, is a favor to the recipient so that they will be comfortable in recognizing your stuff and not challenged by it. And it's also, of course, the huge responsibility of the person deciding on this stuff, because it's got to represent something having to do with their world, even if it's a ironic joke about it. But I would say, Ivan, did you have more to add? I don't step on that. Okay. To sort of bring it back to an initial like process of doing this question. I've got two sort of my suggestion to the world for this, and that's things that you want to spend the time with and that you're going to love learning the techniques and tools about. I would suggest, only because people might not know this, vector art is the kind that's scalable. This is a way of designing a piece of art that you can draw some lines, and those lines are computationally represented in a file, and wherever that's rendered, be it SVG or EPS or any of these types of vector line art things, it'll be clean. It won't it'll scale to the pixel resolution of the device or the printer or the press or the silk screens. And so you'll have a thing that is very usable at all sizes and can be durable for changing and using in the future. So having a vector-based logo of some sort can be extremely useful. And that might be the typeface that you've chosen for your band name, plus the shape or logo type that goes with it, which, hey, make a unique shape. Maybe it's just a Unicode character. Maybe it's something that you actually struck or modified, but it's the thing that goes with it. You've got your logo and your type, logo type. Do it as vector art. You can always make a rendered version of raster art or pixels at any time you want. If you want to apply special color shading effects, shadows, rotate it in 3D, you can do all these things from the basic form that you started with your, maybe it's just a typeface and just a Unicode character or something like that combination. But spending the time to get really good at a technical vector art drawing program isn't what I'm suggesting. I did because it was 40 years ago and I just sort of like wanted to learn how to make Bezier curves turn into shapes and fill in the correct order so that there weren't gaps and open EPS errors. I don't know, it was fun for me. I loved it. So Alex, if you're going to like go into it, go the hell into it. I'm there for you. But in the meantime, I also had qualified designer just make the logo with a pen and paper. So, you know, I had this like dual exclamation point thing in a circle with multiple, you know, layers of knockouts and stuff. It wasn't in my skills to do it. I had somebody else do it. That became the template from which I worked. And it was like a sort of a permanent original version of the thing. So I could get the metrics consistent throughout the lifetime when I bother to use it. Long way of saying, if you need something, there are people there on Fiverr that are super good at what they do and really cheap. I don't know if it's exploitive. Check your, you know, gut on whether it's worth it to go there. There are 3 people in your Instagram feed that also do this stuff and are really good at it. Maybe 7, maybe 15, depending on how you've weighted things. Hit them up, message them. Might not be a paid gig. It might be an extremely affordable thing. There might be a trade that you can do, but getting somebody qualified whose style you already like, or there's something about their stuff that you already like, boom, you'll be there. And then you can mess with it for the rest of your life. Anybody else want to jump in and shut me up about the idea of taking your logo ideas and branding stuff? Big topic. Fair enough. What else? We got a couple of possibilities here. I would like to maybe think about new inspirations from a piece of hardware or a piece of software. We haven't talked about the actual process of creating sounds that much right now. And I think that there's, at least a little bit of room to stop and think about something in the past few weeks, past year, that you pushed a button on and it did something that you really liked and you sort of incorporated it into your workflow, or something that you're still working on getting into your style. Brett, since you're ready to jump in, I would love to start with you before I start blabbing about it. So what's going on with you?
Yeah, so in resuming a former project, God, you know, part of that is I'm getting back into creating a whole new sound set. You know, and part of my approach there is, what would the character I'm going to play in that want? So for me, that is going into the Kurzweil here. Typically, I'll find something in the realm of what I want for, you know. So, you know, if I'm thinking in my head, you know, I need, you know, some sort of bass, then I might start with basses, but I'm also probably going to experiment with things that are in other strings. And this is kind of how that went. I ended up picking something akin to a dulcimer, but then I saved that over as a new sound. I detuned it. I actually layered it on itself, and then I started applying effects to it to rip it to shreds. So I've named it. It's named Bad Trip. And it, you know, but you know, the concept for what I was going for was something, you know, like of course, dark is irrelevant with our group, but something more on the trippy side of things, you know. And what I'm actually doing is, you know, it's an instrumental, so it lends itself very well for doing those more experimental kinds of sounds and whatnot. And what I found in that is you just have to keep it interesting, and it can take the listener for a ride. But if you're going to hypnotize them, you better do so for good reason.
Brilliant. Has that opened up any new techniques and habits in that chain of the audio processing?
New habits, no. These
Pretty
are very
much.
practiced at this point.
Yeah,
For me.
yeah.
You know, I started off. You know, my first primary synth was the Yamaha DX100, which was, you know, a cousin of the DX7, but had a few more. I will argue a few more advanced features, even though it was a smaller synth.
Yeah.
Its sample and hold, by the way, was badass. Anyway, but I got very accustomed to working with FM synthesis, and one of the reasons I picked up this Kurzweil is on the PC4 they reintroduced it, and I instantly recognized those algorithms. And so, while it's not the same hardware, it's arguably a lot better. Being able to blend VAST with FM synthesis right there, all of a sudden just made this instrument become very, very familiar.
Right.
So it's really easy for me to grab something or create something,
cool,
you know, sketch it out and then just mutilate it.
Having habits is what allows us to actually make stuff and not just be continually experimenting and never releasing anything. So
right.
I mean, it's one of the ways anyhow. Alex, weigh in on that one, please, if you would.
So I think like 2 weeks ago, I treated myself to a new MIDI controller.
New thing patrol. Cool.
And the idea behind this one is it's portable and not as much of a hassle to set up. And also it has like this macro controls for Ableton. And by the way, if anyone has an idea how to switch devices in Ableton with a hotkey, please let me know. Yeah, and I used this, and while testing it out, I played the apps by Moog, and I realized they sound really great. Especially the Mini Moog one. I don't know how a real one sounds, but the app sounds fantastic.
Oh, that's great. What show us the controller again, and just like what are you using on it?
It's like the Arturia Minilab 3, I think.
Beautiful. We'll get into this thing with the Ableton situation in a sec, but are you using the pads and faders and keys effectively at all yet?
Until now, I just played and played and played without any big idea on making a track. But I wanted to have this one because it's like perfect with the Octa track, and I can take it with me without breaking my back.
I've got a similar format thing in the the MPC style. The reason I asked if you've employed any of the faders or pads is these are Akai being king of trigger pads. They feel great. I love using them. I think what you're finding maybe also is keeping them assigned to a thing that you want them to be assigned for and actually being able to switch it usefully is another art of learning the instrument altogether. What's your main goal when you ask about a switching key of some sort in Ableton?
So this one controls the 8 parameters of a device, and it's great if you want to control a compressor. You rarely need more than 8 parameters. With an EQ, it depends probably on how many bands you're using. I haven't used it on an EQ, but the idea is if I'm mixing, I can just say maybe control something A5, and then I have like the nth device or the 5th device in the chain, and I can quickly control it without having to mouse around much.
I haven't heard that exact application where there'd be a control key to flip it through your device chain. I haven't found a way to do this. I'm sort of asking and hoping that you'll inspire somebody to chime in with an answer out on the internet in a chat or among the panel. The problem that I have is the fixed control layout mapped to an arbitrary set of things per device never connect mentally. I haven't found a good way to say, oh yeah, these four parameters mean something. I just always resort to, if I need a control in real time that I want to groove with, I'll assign 2 controllers on the fly, and I'll do it as a macro mapping rather than expecting that the automatic device control is going to line up with anything. Maybe that's, if I had tried to do it the other way, I'd be more in the habit of, yep, that's got the blue hand in Ableton, which indicates which device is the one that's going to be controlled, and I can predict it. I haven't gotten there personally. And furthermore,
So according
yeah,
to
go
my
ahead.
research, you can select devices with MIDI nodes, but I don't have a spare MIDI controller that can switch channels on the fly. So
if
maybe
you
I
can
need
do it
to-
with MIDI notes, you can do it with key keys probably too, right? Like ASCII keyboard typing keys, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know.
2 separate configuration screens, but they have very similar capabilities. There's a thing called CliffX or GlyphX or CliffX or something like that, which is like a macro screen control and all parameters control, which I don't know if it uses the direct max for live controls or the APIs, but it gets into stuff like almost like a screen recorder scraper that knows where things are, and you can do a whole lot of in this clip I've named it please select next item, so that when you fire off that clip it selects next item just by what's in the contents of the clip title. I'll try to look up what the name of this thing is, but if it's not coming naturally to do it within other like things that you've got on hand, like MIDI controllers or keyboard controllers, this utility will certainly allow you to do absolutely anything in Ableton Live that is doable, let's say. There was something else that that came to mind about specifically controlling stuff in Ableton, but it'll come back to me. One thing also, like new stuff patrol, I've got a couple that come to mind in the past 2 weeks, but Ivan, you also brought up getting a noise gate a couple of weeks ago, and I was just wondering how you did get a piece of hardware. Can you talk about that for
Yeah, I
a
just
second?
picked up it just got delivered today. It's a Tascam GA 2020. So it's really?
It's a that? It's a really?
Yeah. It's like it is essentially it's a Drummer DS201 on steroids. That Tascam only sold it in the Japanese market back in the 80s. So I'm waiting now for the voltage converter.
And can you go down any of the features that are like the on steroids part of it? Like what specifically, even about the drummer concept in general? I know fast is one thing.
Yeah, fast is the most important thing. It's because it's a gate. Like, and you like trying to use the software gates. I can get pretty close, but it's not fast enough. Like software is just not fast enough.
And when you say software gate, are you talking about running hardware into your converters through the software and then back out to the
No,
mix?
This is like VST into VST software. And it's just it's close, but it's not quite there. I mean, granted, I've made some stuff with gates that I probably wouldn't change a thing about them because like I got them into a place where I'm happy.
Yeah.
But now I'm really looking forward to using it out and in, on my and using it as an external effect.
Specifically, do you have an instrument that is going to be gated and a different instrument that will be doing the gating key?
Yeah, well, I mean, the gate will be probably generated by Ableton, with a drum track.
Could be anything, yeah.
And then like kind of looking forward to running it with the Op6. Because the Op6 is good at doing pads. And they're fun, and Op6y, so like nice FM sounds on that. Also, with that, I I can go pure hardware on the the synth solution and the gate solution. So like, I could run everything through one channel there, which would probably be handy. And I think it's gonna sound okay. Like, fingers are crossed. I'll hopefully get to try this soon. The other thing that's been kind of a little inspired by is like, geez, like 4 or 5 years ago, Ken Marshall explained the old setup for getting Ogre's vocals to sound good, or to sound even more Ogre. So this would have been like in the when they were at Mushroom Studios doing stuff for
Previous releases.
like early 90s.
Yeah.
When it really sounded amazing. And one of the reasons it sounded so amazing was because he's using a Furman parametric EQ running to a was it Eventide? No, Universal Audio 175 compressor.
Compressor, yeah.
Yeah. And good news is now the 175 is available from Universal Audio as a plugin. So
good news for some people.
I am now just looking for a good way to get the Furman parametric EQ into the mix without going out and finding one and buying it, because they're kind of rare.
Oh,
yeah.
Get anything, just get one. And
the Universal Audio is even more rare, but
right. And most of the Universal Audio stuff is probably also extremely pricey, being like Class A
the cool part is the Universal Audio, like the plugin right now, is on sale. It's like $45.
Yeah,
that's a winner
version. I gotcha.
Yeah. Oh no, and the hardware.
But depending if you're talking specifically about gates and hardware, and
the hardware would be a couple $1,000s right now, if you can find it.
I would love to have something with a Universal or Yuri logo or something like that on it from classic days. Can't afford it. I don't think the difference is quite dramatic enough to warrant it for most cases, but it does have curb appeal for when your clients come in and see that stuff in the rack.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that, so I'm sticking with software. Yeah, I'm thinking about like trying this out tomorrow. Like grab the plugin and like find a parametric that's at least close enough.
And before we move away to a little side topic on that, what's your chain going to be for that? Possibly.
It is probably going to be, vocals in on the audio interface, which is
the numbers don't matter so much as what each unit is what I'm curious about.
And then like right now, like for the first testing, it'll be that to the parametric, and then to the Universal Audio 175, and then just out. Just because I want to see what that does on its own first.
And that's all in the audio side of the chain, not in the key, the side chain for the gate. That's just
and the gate's not even part of this.
Got it. I was still thinking about that. One of the things that sort of comes to mind, and the idea of hardware compressors also. Alex, you had mentioned that. Did you have something specific in mind that you were shooting for there?
It's nothing urgent. I just been thinking about if I'm sound designing with hardware, I often feel like I'm missing a compressor. And looking at compressors new, they tend to be expensive. But if there are any classic units that were like really popular, but like not sought after, that still do a job of a compressor well, please let me know so I can maybe look out for one. Because I think like they're the top end compressors that everybody knows, but like the small heroes of project studios, maybe they are good ones, and it's just something that's a bit more affordable.
I'm terrible with brands, even of stuff that I own. But I went through this last year and ended up almost settling on kits. And this was for a actual opto compressor, like a LA2A style, which I don't know why. It's just like I really wanted that particular sound, and I think we can emulate it pretty well in software. But like you were saying, having the knobs there and the warm thing glowing and the VU meters pinging and stuff imparts the same kind of thing as an LP cover. Like there's something in the room with you doing an action, and man, if they don't sound good. So I'm not going through them right now with my chain, but I did land on a thing called Comp-2A leveler, and I got a pair of them for stereo, and they can be combined. And they have that opto module in them for doing the light gets brighter, gain goes up kind of effect to do the gain riding from the control signal to the past audio signal that is being controlled. And I played bass through the thing, I put the vocals through the thing, and I just like, I love it. So anytime I'm feeling like I can actually turn the thing on, it's on the patch bay, it's in the rack, they're ready to go. They were not super cheap, but as far as LA2A style opto compressors, these things were a good enough deal that I could get the pair and not die of starvation from having spent it. And I will, it's like the third thing that I have to look up and put in the chat list for later. But kit stuff, and there are half rack sized 3 tall kind of options for specific kinds of compressors. Alex, do you have a preference for the compressor's action or the topology, how it's made, or is it more I want something in the room?
No, it's specifically something that's really fast, so I can change the transient to body behavior in drums. Basically, that's the main idea.
Yeah, like technically, obviously the answer is just get a multi topology selectable software one and do it, which is a lame answer because we already have those. But man, like that's another thing I don't keep in my mind as to which things are the fastest and which things have the most lag and are the sloppiest. But I happen to be erring on the side of I want it to be distortion and colorful because it's what I'm paying for it to use actual electricity for. And if the knobs get scratchy, like yay, fine. And if it has some transformer distortion from hitting the inputs, great. So, you know, like making it worth your while. That said, there are a lot of used single rack space solutions in the diode germanium fast compressor things that read to the microsecond. I don't know if they read down to 0, but they're way beyond milliseconds in these cases. And have you found anything that sort of meets that effect?
Like you, I'm bad with names and model numbers, but just going through like the what I see now on eBay, it's like something like DBX or I don't know what the other the other brands are called, but like as you said, the small ones for live music, the affordable ones for live music. Sorry.
Yeah.
Usually single unit rack.
Well, I would love to come back to that as you look into it, because man, I spent a month trying to find this, which is why I get the to be able to forget model numbers because I did it once and now they're just in there. But I found one that I thought would do the thing, and it's really gratifying having them there. And I've had some crummy rack compressors over the years, like some that run in digital emulation but are in the rack, some that were just really cheap ass compressors, and they did the thing. They gave me the effect of wow, the loud things are now sound quiet and the quiet things now sound really loud. It did it, but they didn't do it with any particular style. And if you want you know, something that's really versatile, I think that the method for me was come up with what I wanted to do, look at what some of the brands were on freaking Sweetwater and who's ripping off which, you know, classic actual things the most. And then once that was done, just going to all of the YouTube videos about here's how this thing sounds, here's my tutorial, here's my unboxing, and spending some time listening to them.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
My hope was that there was like some brand of the maybe late 90s that did the thing but wasn't sought after and people forgot, and now they're going for cheap. So if anybody knows something like that, that was the idea I was hoping for. I think there's some affordable ones at Thomann, but I think they
Sure.
start at 150 to 200 euros.
Which that's not a bad price for it, but I get there's probably a few things. I know that one of the classic units that I had that had a 2-channel compressor with some gates was a Korg, and it was a weird unit. Parametric EQ, gates, and compressors, and it was harsh. It did what you want. I don't know if it was technically as fast on the attack, but Korg 2-channel compressor, weird thing, definitely going to be broken and available on Reverb and eBay. But brands like that, like Roland, definitely made some. Alessis made some of those total musical hobbyist and basement musician brands have stuff. And there will be demos of them doing exactly what you're trying to do. So you get the benefit of maybe being able to listen to it. So cool. Does anybody else have, just show of hands, anybody got a hardware compressor in the rack at all? Or are we using software? So yeah, it's real easy. Oh, kind of. Mark, do you want to explain what kind of is?
There's a compressor function on my what do you call it? Audio interface. So technically I have a compressor that's hardware, but I don't. I've never really touched
that
it.
counts though. Is it Arturia or
Roland?
Roland has, okay. And is it like a effects chain in each channel? So there's like a gate EQ compressor, or is it just on the front end?
On the front, there's a little knob for the compressor. It's a compressor / limiter. There's a switch in the back that switches it between the two.
Cool. Have you found yourself using that and listening to what it does, or is it?
I probably tried it out when I first got it, just out of curiosity. But I was like, I'm just gonna put this on a neutral setting so I don't have to think about it most of the time.
Perfect. Yeah. But that is kind of the job of a program leveler traditionally, is to get radio signals not to overmodulate. So we have a long tradition of just set it and forget it being the whole purpose of a compressor anyway. Ivan, what do you have?
Yeah, I've got a TC Helicon. Was it the VoiceWorks? And I think that's got a compressor built in. I also have a Virtualizer 3D, which I think has a compressor built in. I currently have them powered in rack, so they're waiting to get installed up on 3rd floor.
I don't own one, but knowing the TC stuff, it certainly, if it's a voice processor, it has a compressor and limiter and stuff to select. The reason I was asking if we have them is getting them so that they can be used is only useful if they have knobs on the front panel. You might as well just use software if it's something that you've got to hunt and peck a parameter knob to change the threshold and ratio. It's not really gaining you anything over the software that runs in your DAW. Maybe it is. Maybe the zero latency processing is what you're after. There are benefits.
I think with the Helicon, for sure, if it's if the compressor is currently selected, then it's got enough knobs to do that. And actually, same for the virtualizer. If you're selected to it, it's got enough knobs to handle that.
That's actually pretty close to likely to be useful, though. Is it something that you've considered installing in this setup, or you're waiting till the final studio is?
Dad is going in a new studio.
Yeah, cool.
Just because of space constraints in this room, as this room is freaking tiny. I'm making music in a closet.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's probably all I had to weigh in about them. I'm going to go on a tear looking at 1990s compressor units for guitarists after this, I'm sure, because now my curiosity is back about.
I think that the real uncool zone right now is 2005.
Oh, there's a peak uncool.
No, I think it's like this area of time where people forget about it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
after it gets vintage again, and it's always moving forward.
So what color scheme are we looking for in that time period? Is it after the teals and orange, or is it?
Yeah, I think it's red and white.
Okay, got it. So red and white, 2005. Go on eBay. Awesome. Let's see. Do we have any other topics that we wanted to hit? We've kind of gone around everything except for the sort of maybe possibly scary hot button um, sprawling topic of generative music and stuff like that, which actually Brett mentioned doing. Is that some sort of thing we want to launch into right now? Because I usually handle about an hour of of this and then start blagging, which I'm game to talk about it. Brett, if you want to jump into it, I think we have a lot to maybe share, but
I don't have anything real. It was literally we could touch it in like 2 seconds by saying that literally I was laughing my ass off at a YouTube channel called Two Scuffed, in which they were using Suno AI to basically just kind of generate stuff. And the only idea that I had that kind of came out of that, which I haven't explored yet, was to take those things and recognize that it is kind of soulless and it is all those things, and simply use it to add to my sample library. And
yeah.
in that regard, I think it has a future, but and I don't think it'll trespass too much on anybody for that.
Probably not. And you know what that just sort of made me think of is, does anybody have, or has anybody stumbled upon a tool that just generates individual sounds and not songs from a description?
In their videos, there is one.
That could be kind of fun.
Right now, let's see.
Yeah, if you happen to find it, just because, I mean, obviously Suno.ai is the one that I've looked at and typed goth song about coffee and cats, and it came out with something that sounded like exactly that, but as if it had been put through a early Fraunhofer MP3 filter and mixed by somebody who didn't have all of their hearing and wasn't really good with metaphor in the lyrics, let's say, but it sounded like music, like it sounded like a recording of a song. On the other hand, so that's kind of useless to me as somebody who likes to actually make the songs. But I would be sort of interested in something that you can type like loud snare drum with 4 seconds of reverb and then it reverses kind of thing, and having that just come up rather than tags in my library finding it. Alex, what does that make you think of?
So this is a bit of a tangent, but I've been thinking about not only generative AI, but degenerative AI.
Oh,
So basically, those neural networks are just files in the end. And the individual weights and connections could, in theory, be like modified, even randomly. And something I want to do in the future is to try to figure out if I can just address them with Python and just scramble them.
yeah.
So I get really weird shit out of it. So
I don't know where the kids are hanging out talking about it, like Hugging Face and on just regular Git repositories, or where the visual diffusion model makers, waiters, destroyers, people hang out. I know enough to say those words. I didn't really succeed in doing anything with those models, so I'm even further away from audio. But this is like the third thing I've said, man, I hope you go with and find something specific out about, because yes, it that exists in the visual and end of this for and also with the large language models too, of course. But have you got any purchase on this yet, or is it still just like a new idea?
it's something I want to do, but I bought a book on PyTorch and I just need to go through it. I did a bit of how's it called? TensorFlow, which is like another framework for machine learning.
Yeah.
Rather deep learning. But I just need to sit down and do it. But I think it's such an interesting idea, and I just know that I've said it, maybe I will actually do it.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And also I will acknowledge that you've got the categorization and terminology for the specific things that you need to bring to bear on this problem, rather than just summing it up as AI and throwing some sauce on it, which becomes increasingly a way in. But having some skills with a specific model or TensorFlow or Python script that you have your hands on and being able to take this stuff apart sounds fascinating. And I hope the first wait, what was your catchphrase? Destructive.
Degenerative.
Well, yes.
like a neurological disorder, basically,
That is genius, and I
or
hope
LSD
it bears fruit.
for the AI.
Hell yeah. Brett, did you have something to weigh in on that?
Yeah, well, just kind of a continuation. We were talking there, so it's 11labs.io where you can do text to sound effects generation.
Oh,
Um,
the speech company.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and of course, in those videos I was mentioned, they did it humorously, which I also shared. That's that first link in our Zoom chat here. That will take you to their channel. But more importantly, the way they used Suno and 11 Labs and other AI generation as well, to generate everything from lyrics and whatnot, it was actually pretty neat the way they put it together. No doubt, no doubt there's a way to actually use that in a humanistically way.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't checked out 11 Labs in a long time since I think I uploaded my voice to try to get it to do a model of me a long time ago when they were doing that for free. I don't know if that's still their main thing, but can you just let us know, does it do short sounds on demand like you described, like exactly what you want, and it'll come up with something like a sampler would?
Yeah, exactly. Short and long. You can it very much appears that you can guide it into exactly what you need. Their prompts are like an old female voice sobbing, "Why did this happen to me?" versus a joyful woman saying something else. So, no, and I mean, if you look at their site, they've got everything from barking dogs to doorbells, and
Right,
other
right.
stuff. So you're talking long, short duration things here. Plus, you can I've seen them actually chain it together,
Yeah.
like represent this as a goblin for fun's sake, and
As in, you can feed an audio prompt back in and then give it more information to say manipulate this in this way. Do they do that? In the
I
way that, like
well,
Photoshop, if you have an image, you can add and also add a park bench that's blue and it'll do shit like that. I don't know. You've got a snare drum sample and make it more snappy and more like an 808 and it'll morph. I'm
I
just
know
spitballing here. I'm giving them
it can
ideas.
manipulate its own sounds. I don't know that you can add sounds to it for it to manipulate. I would imagine that there's got to be some way. It's just that I don't know it.
Well, Alex's new plugin is going to do that, and it's going to hallucinate while it's making those sounds. We're going to be able to present it with something really boring, and it's going to come out with a trippy ass backwards
That's right.
bipolar version of the thing. I would like to say, is there anything else anybody wants to talk about now that we've had so many topics flying around? Maybe something more has come to mind.
I was going to throw in a downer statement real quick about 11 Labs.
Oh yeah, please. No, actually, that's really. I saw your face change a little, and I was almost ready to throw to you about that. So
Gotcha.
please.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm not gonna tell anyone how to morally feel about things, but do be aware that 11 Labs, as far as I understand, currently they don't really have a way to stop people from doing malicious things and uploading voices of people who did not give their consent. That seems to be completely on the user base to not do, which it's the internet. People are going to do whatever they want if it's not, if they don't make it illegal or against their terms of service. But just be aware of that if you're going to use 11 Labs, because now this is on me. This is me on my soapbox. Personally, I don't approve of selling AI output. And since 11 Labs, you subscribe to, you're essentially buying it from them. I'm not crazy about the idea of that, and also considering how dangerous it is. But once again, I say that I do use a local stable diffusion model. So, just be aware of what you're getting into before you use it. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's incredibly well stated, and the caution is warranted. And also, the ethical considerations are fully warranted. I know a lot of my visual artist friends have extremely serious feelings and misgivings about anybody who touches a diffusion generated piece of art and then presents it to the public as if it was art. And also, I mean, let's face it, Apple's next thing has going to be 1.8 billion users all of a sudden having every single messaging prompt one description away from access to all of these models and making little novel pieces of art, and that's really going to crack it open if it isn't already cracked open among the nerds and stuff. Like, it's going to be extremely mainstream for the visual artists in you know, a few months now. I think that it is almost more important to bring up those kinds of considerations every time we mention it than to say what we did with it. But it's you know, it's an evolving field, and so far I'm just going with the, I like making the stuff, and even when the computer models sound as good as my stuff, I probably still like making stuff, although it's a little bit difficult to think that way. Mark, did you have any other details of your idea on that? Just giving you the floor to say a couple more things. If
no,
no
like I said, I
pressure,
didn't
just-
want to moralize at people. You know, just go on the internet, do your own research, talk to people, kind of get to know what you're actually doing. Because once again, don't want to make this an AI conversation, but like, I've met a lot of people who are intensely anti-AI without really understanding what's going on. And I've met people who just say, I don't care, I'm just making cool little pictures, it's not hurting anyone. When, I mean, when you post it, it kind of is. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Those are decisions to make on a case-by-case basis, but also in a blanket way. There's so many different scales to look at these things. Like, yeah, the thing that I just used, well, that doesn't count, versus it exists in the world that people can generate this stuff without a human artist. So, Alex, you want to maybe bring us home on this one? You got something else to add?
Yeah, maybe my opinion is that the most depressing thing is that people tend not to do interesting things with it, but just lazy things.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's the biggest tragedy, because the technology is so cool, but it's just used mostly to make slop, and by people who don't really care about the art or about creating something cool, but just create anything and just put it out there without any consideration. Yeah, that's my soapbox.
I feel that deeply, and Mark and Alex, I appreciate both of where you're coming from on that. And if I have a little bit of a soapbox, I'm going to say, man, I don't want to talk shit about any particular artists, because that's stupid. Everybody's got something to offer, and everybody's got their levels at which they're even interested in presenting, let's say, a music video. But when I see typically, let's say, not Stable Diffusion so much, but Mid-Journey looking kind of stuff, which is gorgeous, and the light and the characters and the cyberific laser pew 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 stills. No continuity between them, new still. New characters introduced. No narrative story. This is their video. There's just some shots of some stuff that they hit some prompts, and they probably said, like, you know, edgy skull, you know, 2000, and they look awesome individually. And I just feel empty. Like I'm listening to somebody telling me about their dream they had last night. It's like, yeah, I'm sure it was vivid while you were doing it, man, but I'm just watching stuff go by, and I feel a little sad and a little bit defeated and a little bit empty. And maybe that's the you know, video creator in me. Maybe it's, you know, the person who's hoping that everybody's standards will be elevated and their attachment to a true creative drive can be filtered out in some lo-fi ways and some authentic and personal ways, rather than reaching for the easy tools with the knobs and sliders and the flashy pew pew pew. Anyway, that's kind of, you know, do what you want to do, but know how it's going to be received. Possibly it might not be worth it.
And know who's being oppressed for it.
That is, yeah, man, it's hard to keep all this stuff in mind too, motivations being what they are, but yeah, I think that's a good lens to try to, you know, flip through while you're making your decisions. Like, at what cost really, and like to whom? It's an important consideration. All that being said, I am ready to wrap this up. If anybody else wants to launch into another major ethical and artistic morass and quandary discussion, I'd be certainly happy to do it, but I'm just going to listen at this point. So that being said, I'm gonna say thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate the opportunity to hear from y'all and to have these conversations. And thanks to Carl for letting me have the platform to sort of spout stuff off in between. It's whether it's wanted or not, I'm glad to be able to do it. And for now, that's the Art of Rock, and I'm gonna hit the stop live stream button. We will see you real soon.